Today we have a comment reply video. I enjoyed doing that one with you guys last week, so I'm just going to kind of continue doing these. And the comment that we have today is from Ready to Die Fighting, and the video or the comment replies pertains to a video where I was talking about attacking on both sides. And so with my students recently, we were working on back mount, and I encouraged a lot of my students, especially the more experienced ones, to work their submissions on their left side. And the reason I said that is because a lot of times most of us are right-handed, and so most of us attack dominantly, especially with chokes and arm lars and stuff like that, to the right side. And so the person that we're attacking, our opponents, our training partners, they become very sensitive on that right side. Their muscle memory, the intelligence in their body sort of becomes in tune on that right side, but not so much on the left side. Their defense is not going to be as strong there. And so, if you can develop that weaker side of your game up a little bit, you might find that it gives you more options of attacks. And you might even find that that becomes your better side for attacking, as it has for me with things like guard passing and stuff, where I attack what used to be my quote-unquote weak side. It's now my better side because it's most people's weaker side than their strong side, if that makes sense. And so the reply that I got from Ready to Die Fighting was, would you recommend white belts do this? Would this be a good tip for white belts? To answer your question, yes and no. I'll tell you about me. When I started in jiu-jitsu back in the day as a white belt, I was told to not do techniques to both sides. I was told you want to focus on one side or the other because you want to have a side that's 100% rather than two that are 50-50. And there is some truth to that, right? You do want to have a side that's good, that kind of thing. And really what I encourage my students to do is to develop a technique to the point where they've learned it. Now, I have a bit of a distinction with knowing and learning. I don't consider them the same thing, not with jiu-jitsu. Like with jiu-jitsu, you can watch a video, you can see your coach do something, you can even practice it a little bit, right, in slow conditions, and you know that. You know that it exists. You know what the idea is, right? But when you roll, as most of you guys have experienced, you don't always have a lot of time to think, and a lot of things are happening so fast that really what you're going on is sort of like muscle memory, the intelligence in your body, right? Like intuition, what feels right. Like in the middle of a submission, you'll watch maybe a really high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner roll, right? They've got a guillotine, and it looks like it's there. They kind of give it a little bit of a tug, like they're going to go for the finish, and then they let go. Right? Now, they could probably articulate as to why they let go, but in the moment, it felt off. It just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel good. And you see this a lot of times with different guard passes, sweeps, and all these other different techniques. As you become more experienced and you know what it feels like, your body's becoming tuned with it, you might let go of things or you might pursue them because of how it feels, not so much because you're thinking of all the details, right? And that's kind of important because to me, when a technique is learned, it becomes wired into your nervous system. So for instance, with a rear naked choke, if you're attacking that rear naked choke, you've learned it, whatever, you need to learn how to do that sucker first on that right side or whatever your dominant side is, to where you can sink it in and it's there. I feel it. It's good. You know what it feels like to do it right. Now, you'll continue to make that move better and better as time goes on, of course. But what that does is you now have a good feeling, a good that's where I'm going. So this way, when you switch it to the other side, you'll know what to feel for. You'll know what you're trying to get to. Because if you have one side that hasn't been developed to the point where you've really learned it, you can't use it during rolling, you can't do it successfully during an actual live situation, then to me, you haven't learned it. You basically know it, but you haven't learned the move. And so to me, going back to your question and your comment, it's fine for white belts as long as they know that movement. They've actually been able to execute it during rolling. They can do it without too much thought during drilling, things like that. Again, it's going to continue to get better, but at that point, they can then, maybe try to do it the other side. And the tip that I gave that I always give to my students, and I give to a lot of you guys in the videos, is, when you're going up against people of higher skill levels, you just have to survive. That's what you got to do, right? When you go up against people of a similar skill level, use your A game to sharpen it up and really develop your ability to use your best weapons against skilled opponents. But then when you're going up against people that are less experienced than you, people that you can beat consistently, that's a great opportunity to work on new stuff. And again, one of my sort of, the encouragement that I gave to my students and I gave to you guys in that video is to attack on your weak side. Do your guard passes, do your submissions, do your sweeps, do everything on that weak side, because that's a great tool to develop to be able to attack on both sides, because then the person's not going to be able to determine where you're coming from because you have the ability to attack on both sides. But in addition, you also will be able to take advantage of the side that may not be as developed on them as much as the other. So, Ready to Die Fighting. Hope that sort of answers your question. Hope that's helpful to you, brother. And guys, I'll talk to you next time.